The young CEO slams his glass off his door after spilling coffee on an old janitor. He mocks the man for pushing a mop, never guessing those hands hold nearly half the company. Downstairs, whispers spread about his temper. Upstairs, the board meets in 2 hours, and the billionaire's empire now rests on the dignity of the man he just humiliated. Before we begin, tell me where you're listening from, and tap subscribe so you never miss a story. Mr. Walker storms through the executive floor, his Italian leather shoes clicking against polished marble. His phone buzzes with urgent messages from nervous investors. "Good morning, Mr. Walker," calls his assistant Sarah as he passes her desk. Walker doesn't slow down. "Hold my calls. I need those quarterly reports now." "They're on your desk, sir," Sarah replies quickly, along with the Patterson Industries proposal. Walker pauses at his office door, expensive watch catching the morning light. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, Chicago's skyline stretches endlessly. "Any word from the board members?" Walker asks without looking back. "3 confirmations so far. Chairman Miller should arrive by 10. Walker nods curtly and enters his corner office. Leather chairs and mahogany furniture reflect his rapid rise to power at 28. His college diploma hangs prominently behind his desk. Harvard Business School, summa cum laude. Everything in the room speaks of achievement and ambition. "Sarah," Walker calls out, "coffee, black, and make sure housekeeping stays out of my way today." Down the hallway, an old man named Mr. Sullivan quietly pushes his cleaning cart between cubicles. His worn uniform bears a faded company logo. Walker's intercom crackles, and Sarah's voice carries a note of concern. "Mr. Walker, Chairman Miller just called," Sarah announces through the speaker. "The board meeting has been moved to noon." Walker checks his watch. 9:15. Less than 3 hours to prepare for the most important presentation of his career. "That's impossible," Walker snaps. "We agreed on 2 o'clock weeks ago." Apparently, the Patterson Industries merger requires immediate attention, something about competing offers. Walker's stomach tightens. Patterson Industries represents $60 million in revenue, enough to secure his position permanently. 25 years ago, his father had built Walker & Associates from nothing. The old man started in a rented warehouse, working 16-hour days until his heart gave out at 55. "Get me everything on Patterson," Walker commands. "Financial records, competitor analysis, market projections." "Already printed and organized," Sarah replies efficiently. Walker pulls his father's old pocket watch from his desk drawer, the only personal item he keeps visible. The inscription reads, "To my son, who will build something greater." "And Sarah," Walker continues, "make sure building maintenance knows this floor is off limits until afternoon." He slides the pocket watch into his vest, a daily ritual that connects him to his father's memory. Outside his office, Mr. Sullivan continues his methodical cleaning, unaware of the approaching storm. The elevator chimes softly, and Walker's biggest rival steps onto the executive floor. Richard Carter emerges from the elevator wearing a charcoal suit that costs more than most people's cars. His silver cufflinks gleam under fluorescent lighting. "Morning, Tommy," Carter says with a smug smile. "Ready for the big presentation?" Walker's jaw clenches at the childhood nickname. "It's Mr. Walker in my building, Richard." "Your building?" Carter laughs coldly. "Let's see what the board thinks about that." Sarah watches the exchange nervously from her desk, pretending to organize already perfect files. "Still playing with Daddy's company, I see," Carter continues. "Some of us actually earned our success." Walker's hands curl into fists at his sides. "I've tripled revenue in 2 years. With Daddy's clients and Daddy's connections. What happens when you're on your own?" The tension in the air grows thick enough to cut. Other employees pretend not to notice, but everyone can feel the hostility. "We'll find out soon enough," Carter says, adjusting his expensive tie. "Patterson Industries is considering my offer too." Walker forces a confident smile. "May the best man win." "Oh, I intend to," Carter replies, heading toward the conference room. Mr. Sullivan appears around the corner with his cleaning cart, moving slowly but steadily down the hallway. Walker's phone rings urgently, and both men turn toward the sound. Walker answers his phone with barely controlled anger. "What is it, Sarah?" "Patterson Industries just called," Sarah whispers urgently. "They're sending their decision team here this morning." "When?"
Walker freezes. 11:30, Sarah replies. They want to observe both presentations before choosing. Carter overhears and grins triumphantly. Looks like we're both auditioning, Tommy. The smell of industrial cleaning solution fills the air as Mr. Sullivan approaches with his cart. His movements are slow but purposeful. This is perfect, Carter continues loudly. Patterson can see us side by side. Walker notices the old janitor for the first time, irritation flashing across his features. Excuse me, we're having a private conversation. Mr. Sullivan looks up with kind blue eyes. Sorry, Mr. Walker, just finishing my rounds. Well, finish them somewhere else, Walker snaps. This floor needs to stay professional. Carter chuckles at Walker's outburst. Still having trouble with staff management? Mr. Sullivan quietly backs his cart away from the confrontation, his worn hands gripping the handles tightly. Don't worry, old-timer. Some of us remember what real work looks like. Walker checks his watch again. 10:45. The pressure mounts with every passing minute. Mr. Sullivan turns the corner toward the supply closet, and Walker's phone rings with news that will change everything.
Sarah's voice comes through Walker's phone with obvious panic. Mr. Walker, there's been a problem with the Patterson presentation. What kind of problem? Walker demands, his voice echoing off the marble walls. The financial projections don't match. Someone changed the numbers in our database. Carter steps closer, trying to overhear the conversation. His cologne mingles with the lingering scent of cleaning supplies. That's impossible, Walker says. I reviewed everything personally last night. The IT department is investigating, but they need at least 2 hours to restore the backup files. Walker's expensive suit suddenly feels suffocating, sweat beads on his forehead, despite the perfect air conditioning. 2 hours? The presentation starts in 90 minutes, Walker shouts. Down the hallway, Mr. Sullivan pauses near the supply closet, his cleaning cart loaded with fresh towels and supplies. Having technical difficulties? Carter asks with barely concealed delight. Nothing I can't handle, Walker lies smoothly. Carter's smile grows wider. Of course not. I'm sure you'll figure something out. The sound of Walker's heartbeat pounds in his ears as panic begins to set in. Mr. Sullivan approaches quietly, and Walker's frustration finally explodes into rage. You! Walker spins toward Mr. Sullivan with blazing eyes. I told you to stay off this floor. Mr. Sullivan stops pushing his cart, confusion written across his weathered face. I'm sorry, sir. I don't care what you were doing, Walker interrupts harshly. Can't you see we're dealing with important business here? Carter watches the confrontation with obvious amusement, his arms crossed smugly. Mr. Walker, Mr. Sullivan says gently, I've been cleaning this floor for 30 years. 30 years of what? Walker sneers. Pushing a mop? Moving garbage around? The old man's shoulders sag slightly, but his dignity remains intact. I do honest work, sir. Honest work doesn't belong up here with real business, Walker continues cruelly. This floor is for people who actually matter. Other employees have begun to notice the scene, their conversations stopping as Walker's voice carries down the hallway. Please, Mr. Walker, Mr. Sullivan says quietly. I'll finish quickly and move along. No, you'll move along now, Walker commands, before you embarrass this company in front of our guests. Carter chuckles audibly at the display of power. Impressive management style, Tommy. Mr. Sullivan's worn wedding ring catches the light as he grips his cart handles tighter. The elevator chimes, and the Patterson Industries team arrives 30 minutes early. 3 executives in immaculate suits step off the elevator, led by an elegant woman with silver hair. Her presence commands immediate respect. Mrs. Patterson, Walker says, quickly composing himself, welcome to Walker & Associates. Thank you, Mr. Walker. I hope we're not interrupting anything. Carter steps forward smoothly. Not at all. I'm Richard Carter, representing Carter Development. Mrs. Patterson's eyes sweep the scene, taking in Walker's flushed face, Carter's smug expression, and Mr. Sullivan standing quietly beside his cleaning cart. I see you're both here, Mrs. Patterson observes. Good. We prefer to evaluate potential partners in their natural environment. Walker forces his most professional smile. Of course. Would you like a tour of our facilities? In a moment, Mrs. Patterson says. First, I'd like to observe how you interact with your team. The temperature in the hallway seems to drop several degrees. Walker realizes his outburst at Mr. Sullivan was witnessed by his potential business partner. Our team is highly professional. Everyone knows their role, Walker quickly says. Mrs. Patterson's gaze moves to Mr. Sullivan, who stands patiently beside his cleaning cart. "And what's your role here?" she asks the old man kindly. "Maintenance, ma'am. I keep things clean and running smooth." "How long have you worked here?" Mrs. Patterson continues. 30 years next month, Mr. Sullivan replies with quiet pride. Mrs. Patterson nods approvingly, and Walker realizes he may have made a terrible mistake. Mrs. Patterson turns back to Walker with a measured expression. 30 years is remarkable loyalty. You must value his experience. Walker's throat goes dry. Of course, all our employees are valued. I'm glad to hear that, Mrs. Patterson says. Loyal employees often know a company's true character. Carter senses an opportunity and steps forward. At Carter Development, we pride ourselves on treating everyone with respect. Walker feels the ground shifting beneath his feet. His earlier outburst now seems petty and cruel. "Mr. Sullivan," Mrs. Patterson says directly to the janitor, "what's it like working here?" The old man hesitates, glancing between Walker and the executives. His faded company shirt tells a story of decades of faithful service. "Well, ma'am, it's been educational." "I imagine it has been," Mrs. Patterson replies with understanding. The hallway falls silent except for the distant hum of office equipment. Walker can feel his chances with Patterson Industries slipping away. "Shall we proceed to the conference room?" Carter suggests helpfully. Mrs. Patterson checks her diamond watch. "Yes, let's begin. We have several important matters to discuss." Mr. Sullivan quietly pushes his cart toward the supply closet, and Walker's phone buzzes with a message that makes his blood run cold.
Walker glances at his phone and sees a text from his lawyer. Emergency. Need to discuss company ownership documents immediately. Call me. Is everything all right? Mrs. Patterson asks, noticing Walker's pale complexion. Yes, everything's fine, Walker lies, slipping the phone into his pocket. Shall we move to the conference room? The group walks down the marble hallway, their footsteps echoing in perfect rhythm. Walker's mind races with possibilities for his lawyer's urgent message. Beautiful building, Mrs. Patterson comments, admiring the floor-to-ceiling windows. When was it constructed? My father built this place in 1995, Walker replies with forced pride, from the ground up. A family business then, Mrs. Patterson observes. Those often have the strongest foundations. Carter walks slightly ahead, his confidence radiating with every step. Some family businesses adapt well to modern challenges. The comment stings Walker, who knows Carter is questioning his ability to lead effectively. My father would be proud of what we've accomplished, Walker says defensively. Behind them, Mr. Sullivan continues his quiet work, organizing supplies in the closet. His movements are methodical, practiced from years of routine. I'm sure he would, Mrs. Patterson agrees diplomatically. Walker opens the conference room door, and his assistant Sarah appears with an expression of barely controlled panic. Mr. Walker, Sarah whispers urgently, your lawyer is on line 1. He says it's about the Patterson contract deadline. Walker's stomach drops. What deadline? Apparently, there's a clause requiring board approval by 2 o'clock today. If we miss it, the deal expires. Mrs. Patterson overhears and checks her watch. That's less than 3 hours from now. I wasn't aware of that stipulation, Walker admits, his confidence cracking visibly. At Carter Development, we always read the fine print carefully. Walker excuses himself and steps into the hallway to take the call. His hands shake slightly as he dials. Johnson here, his lawyer answers immediately. We have a serious problem. What kind of problem? Your father's original incorporation documents. There's something you need to know about the ownership structure. Through the conference room's glass walls, Walker can see Carter charming Mrs. Patterson with animated conversation. Can't this wait until after the presentation? Walker pleads. I'm afraid not, Johnson replies grimly. This affects your authority to make deals. Mr. Sullivan appears at the end of the hallway, pushing his cart towards the elevator. His worn leather keychain jingles softly with each step. Walker ends the call and realizes his entire world might be about to collapse. Walker returns to the conference room, trying to project calm confidence, but his hands betray him with a slight tremor. Everything resolved? Mrs. Patterson asks politely.
Just some minor administrative details, Walker lies smoothly. Nothing that affects our proposal. Carter leans back in his leather chair with obvious satisfaction. I was just explaining to Mrs. Patterson how important it is to have clear lines of authority. The comment feels like a dagger between Walker's ribs. His expensive suit suddenly feels like a costume he's wearing. Of course, Walker agrees, taking his seat at the head of the table. Clear authority is essential. Mrs. Patterson opens her briefcase and removes several documents. Before we begin, I should mention that Patterson Industries values transparency above all else. Walker nods, while his mind races with concerns about his lawyer's cryptic warning. Transparency builds trust, Carter adds helpfully, and trust is the foundation of any successful partnership. The irony isn't lost on Walker, who feels like he's living a lie without even understanding what the truth might be. I couldn't agree more, Walker says, his voice sounding hollow even to himself. Mrs. Patterson spreads the contract pages across the polished conference table. Now, shall we discuss the terms? Outside in the hallway, Mr. Sullivan's cleaning cart rolls towards the elevator with a soft squeaking sound. Walker opens his mouth to begin the presentation, and the conference room door opens unexpectedly. Sarah enters the conference room with obvious reluctance, carrying a manila envelope that seems to weigh heavily in her hands. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Sarah says quietly, "but this just arrived by messenger. They said it was urgent." Walker takes the envelope with growing dread. The return address shows his lawyer's firm in embossed gold lettering. "Please, don't let us stop you," Mrs. Patterson says graciously. "Business waits for no one." Walker's fingers fumble with the envelope seal. Inside, he finds documents that make his vision blur with shock. Carter notices Walker's expression and leans forward with curiosity. Bad news? Walker stares at the papers, unable to process what he's reading. Legal terminology swims before his eyes like a foreign language. "Mr. Walker?" Mrs. Patterson asks with genuine concern. "Are you feeling all right?" The documents reveal a truth that Walker never suspected. His father had given away 49% of the company's shares decades ago. I need a moment," Walker stammers, rising from his chair unsteadily. "Of course," Mrs. Patterson says kindly. "Take all the time you need." Walker exits the conference room with the documents clutched in his shaking hands. The marble hallway stretches before him like a tunnel. Behind him, he can hear Carter beginning his own presentation to Mrs. Patterson. Walker looks at the papers again and sees a name that stops his heart. Thomas Sullivan, 49% shares, voting rights intact. Mr. Sullivan steps off the elevator, carrying a fresh bucket of cleaning supplies, and Walker realizes his world just turned completely upside down.
Walker stares at the documents in disbelief, reading the name Thomas Sullivan over and over. The legal papers shake in his trembling hands. "This can't be right," Walker mutters to himself. "There has to be some mistake." Mr. Sullivan approaches with his cleaning bucket, the water sloshing gently with each step. Steam rises from the warm, soapy mixture. "Excuse me," Walker calls out, his voice cracking with emotion. "Mr. Sullivan?" The old man stops and turns, his weathered face showing mild curiosity. "Yes, Mr. Walker?" "Is your full name Thomas Sullivan?" Walker asks, already knowing the answer. "It is," Mr. Sullivan replies simply, "though most folks just call me Tom." Walker's legs feel weak beneath him. The man he humiliated 30 minutes ago owns nearly half of everything. "How long did you say you've worked here?" Walker asks, though he dreads the answer. 30 years next month," Tom Sullivan repeats patiently. "Since your father first opened the doors." The hallway begins to spin around Walker. His expensive watch feels like a weight on his wrist. "You knew my father?" Walker asks weakly. "Known him well," Tom replies with a gentle smile. "Good man. Treated people with respect." Through the conference room glass, Walker can see Carter presenting confidently to Mrs. Patterson. Walker's phone buzzes with another urgent message, and Tom Sullivan notices his distress. Tom Sullivan sets down his cleaning bucket and approaches Walker with genuine concern. "Are you all right, son? You look pale." The word son cuts through Walker like a knife. The man he just treated like dirt is showing him kindness. "Tom," Walker begins, his voice barely above a whisper, "did my father ever give you anything?" Tom's eyes grow distant with memory. "Your father was generous in many ways." Walker holds up the legal documents with shaking hands. Did he give you shares in the company? Tom glances at the papers and nods slowly. 49%. As a thank you for helping me get started. Walker feels like the floor has dropped out from beneath him. You own almost half of Walker & Associates? On paper, yes, Tom says quietly. But I never wanted to interfere with your leadership. Walker's expensive suit suddenly feels suffocating. Sweat beads on his forehead despite the perfect climate control. Why didn't you ever say anything? Walker asks desperately. Your father asked me to let you find your own way, Tom explains. He believed you needed to earn respect, not inherit it. Through the glass, Walker can see Carter concluding his presentation to Mrs. Patterson. Walker's phone buzzes with another urgent message. Tom Sullivan sets down his cleaning bucket and approaches Walker with genuine concern. Are you all right, son? You look pale. The word son cuts through Walker like a knife. The man he just treated like dirt is showing him kindness. Tom, Walker begins, his voice barely above a whisper, did you mind telling me? Tom's eyes grow distant with memory. Your father was generous in many ways. Walker holds up the legal documents with shaking hands. Did he give you shares in the company? Tom glances at the papers and nods slowly. 49%. As a thank you for helping me get started. Walker feels like the floor has dropped out from beneath him. You own almost half of Walker & Associates? On paper, yes, Tom says quietly, but I never wanted to interfere with your leadership. Walker's expensive suit suddenly feels suffocating. Sweat beads on his forehead despite the perfect climate control. Why didn't you ever say anything? Your father asked me to let you find your own way. He believed you needed to earn respect, not inherit it. Through the glass, Walker sees Carter concluding his presentation to Mrs. Patterson. The board meeting starts in 28 minutes, Miller announces. Walker looks into Tom's weathered face and sees decades of quiet dignity and patience. Tom, Walker says desperately, will you help me save this company, even after how I treated you? Tom sets down his bucket and studies Walker's face carefully. Why should I? Walker realizes this might be his last chance to prove he's learned something from his father's example. Tom's answer will determine everything, and the clock is ticking toward Walker's moment of truth.
Tom Sullivan looks directly into Walker's eyes, searching for something genuine beneath the desperation. The hallway falls silent except for the distant hum of ventilation. Your father once told me something important, Tom says quietly. He said true leadership isn't about titles or power. Walker waits with his heart pounding, aware that his entire future hangs on Tom's next words. He said it's about serving others, Tom continues, even when no one is watching. Miller checks his watch impatiently. 24 minutes, gentlemen. Through the glass, Mrs. Patterson begins gathering her documents, apparently satisfied with Carter's presentation. Tom, Walker says, his voice breaking slightly, I understand if you can't forgive me. It's not about forgiveness, Tom replies gently. It's about whether you've learned anything. Walker thinks about his father's pocket watch, still nestled in his vest. The inscription about building something greater suddenly carries new meaning. I learned that I've been an arrogant fool, Walker admits honestly, and that worth has nothing to do with job titles. Tom's weathered hands rest calmly at his sides. What else? Walker continues. I learned that you can work beside someone for years and never really see them. And, Tom prompts patiently, I learned that my father was wiser than I ever imagined. Tom Sullivan nods slowly, and Walker sees something shift in the old man's expression. Tom walks to the conference room door and peers through the glass at Mrs. Patterson and Carter. Tell me about this Patterson Industries deal. Walker quickly explains the merger terms while Miller watches nervously. $60 million in revenue over 5 years. And Carter's offer? Asks Tom. Probably similar, maybe better after my presentation disaster. Tom strokes his chin thoughtfully. Your father always said business should benefit the community, not just the bank account. Mrs. Patterson notices them watching and waves politely through the glass. Tom, Miller interjects, we have 19 minutes to reach a decision. Tom looks at Walker intently. If I support this deal, what changes? Walker realizes this is about more than business. It's about the kind of man he wants to become. Everything changes, Walker says sincerely, starting with how I treat people. Words are easy. Actions matter more. Through the glass, Carter shakes hands with Mrs. Patterson, clearly confident in his success. You're right, Walker acknowledges. I need to prove myself through actions. Tom's faded janitor's shirt bears the same logo that decorates Walker's expensive suit, a reminder of their unexpected connection. All right, Tom says finally. But I have conditions. Walker nods eagerly, and Tom's requirements will change everything about how the company operates. Tom counts off his conditions on his weathered fingers. First, employee profit sharing. Everyone who contributes should benefit from success. Walker nods immediately. Absolutely. What else? Second, respectful treatment for all workers, from executives to maintenance staff. Of course, Walker agrees quickly. Miller looks concerned about the financial implications, but remains silent. Third, Tom says, community investment. This company should give back to the neighborhood that supports it. Walker thinks about his father's vision and realizes Tom is describing exactly what the old man would have wanted. Those conditions are more than fair, Walker says sincerely. They're right. Tom extends his weathered hand toward Walker, and Walker shakes Tom's hand with genuine gratitude, feeling the calluses from decades of honest work. 15 minutes, Miller announces, heading toward the conference room. Let's get this done. Tom removes his faded janitor's shirt, revealing a clean white dress shirt underneath. From his cleaning cart, he pulls out a navy tie. Always kept this handy, just in case. Mrs. Patterson looks up in surprise as the three men enter the conference room together. "Gentlemen," she says politely, "I was just finishing with Mr. Carter." Carter's confident expression falters as he notices Tom's transformation, and Walker realizes the real presentation is about to begin. Mrs. Patterson stands as the three men approach her. "I wasn't expecting additional participants." "Mrs. Patterson," Tom says with quiet dignity, "I'm Tom Sullivan, co-founder of Walker & Associates." "Co-founder," Carter says, jaw slacked, "but you're the janitor." "I'm both," Tom replies simply. "Sometimes the most important work happens behind the scenes." Mrs. Patterson's eyes light up with genuine interest. "Mr. Sullivan, what's your vision for this partnership?" Tom gestures toward Walker. "My partner here has learned some valuable lessons about leadership and respect." Walker steps forward, his father's pocket watch feeling warm against his chest. "Mrs. Patterson, I'd like to present a revised proposal." He outlines Tom's conditions: profit sharing, employee respect, and community investment. Mrs. Patterson listens intently, taking notes as Walker speaks with newfound humility and purpose. "This approach creates sustainable value," Walker concludes, "not just short-term profit." Carter tries to interject, but Mrs. Patterson raises her hand for silence. "Mr. Sullivan," she says directly to Tom, "you've been quiet for 30 years. Why speak up now?" Tom looks at Walker with paternal pride. "Because I finally see the leader his father knew he could become." Mrs. Patterson closes her folder and stands up. "Gentlemen, I've made my decision." The clock shows 2 minutes until the board deadline, and Walker's future hangs in the balance. Walker & Associates, you have a deal. 3 months later, Walker & Associates had transformed into something neither man could have imagined alone. Profit sharing brought record employee satisfaction. Community programs earned public praise. And Walker learned that true success comes from lifting others up, not putting them down. Sometimes wisdom wears work clothes, and the greatest teachers appear in the most unexpected places.